All right. I'm so excited to introduce our community today to Shenelle Green, founder of Bariatric Rewrite, food addiction and bariatric recovery coach. So awesome. Turning post-surgery confusion and weight regain into sustainable recovery for women navigating bariatric surgery, GLP-1s, and food addiction. You have so much beautiful insight for us today. Welcome, Shenelle.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I was telling you this before we hit record, but that this is a land that I lived in for a very long time as a dietitian and got to do a lot of the outpatient pre-op instruction for patients going into bariatric surgery. And my center was both surgical as well as non-surgical. So I think that we're very aligned in our thinking, and I'm excited to get a brief version of your story, how you got to where you are right now, and why this is such a passion for you.
Yeah, I always take my story back to 2020 in December because that's when I got sober from alcohol and cocaine. And that was a big game changer for me. I was 7 months into my sobriety. I went into a doctor's appointment and I was there just to have my liver looked at. I had had those appointments where they were like, "Ooh, that liver, how much are you drinking?" And I was like, "I don't know what we're talking about. See you later. Never again
Mhm.
to come back." So I was like, time to play the music and go see what was up. So I went into this appointment to have my blood looked at. And this woman who I had never met before was like, "Everything looks fine. Your liver's great. Have you thought about weight loss surgery?" And I was offended because I was not there for that subject. I was there to find out I had cirrhosis of the liver and I was probably going to die. So I wasn't there. That wasn't the subject I wanted to hear. But it intrigued me. And I followed the steps. And then, sure enough, almost a little less than a year later, I had the gastric sleeve. And that would have been in April of 2022 when I had my sleeve. And I came on TikTok in December of 2022 talking about my relationship with food being very similar to my drinking. And I thought that was normal. I really thought everyone else was talking about this in the bariatric world. I was very surprised that was not the case and not a subject people wanted to talk about, but some people clamored on. And I had a regular job. I was working for a marketing company, and somebody said, "Hey, can I PayPal you $50 to coach me?" And I was like, I got nothing else to do outside of 9 to 5. So let's do it. And then here we are 3 years later with a staff of 12. We have an app rolling out. We take on 60 new clients a month. The growth has been immense. And so that's how it all started.
Wow, such a cool story. I'm loving this. I think you were just ahead of your time, to be honest, when you first rolled it out. Because nowadays, I don't think you can separate these topics. Like, I'm in your brain space of, yeah, this is something like so many people, if willing to be as vulnerable as you have been, would easily say that their journey has looked similar. So I'm proud of you and thank you for taking this space out there to fill it with a really much needed information, resources, all of it.
Yeah.
So I think this is important to kick this off, just so patients out there, clients, our community who's hearing this knows that they're not alone with this. There has been this perception of surgery and now the GLP-1s where it's like there's finally this magic bullet. There's this thing that's going to solve all my problems. So I'm just going to and throw that your direction
Yes.
and see what you have to say about
That
it.
that's the pipe dream, man. It's a one-off solution and we're good to go. And it's a fairy tale, and it's not got a great ending if you try to live that in your real life, unfortunately. I think the surgery is a game changer for anyone with a 35 plus BMI that's got comorbidities and have tried everything. This is the last house on the block, but the reality is there's also like a sketchy alley behind that block if you don't do the surgery part correctly. And then you're back at the beginning. I see people have surgery and they're back to counting points. They're back to maybe something like Nutrisystem or Medifast, or they're back to the liquid only diet because they think they'll reset this pouch. There's no button under there. They just sort of fall back into these extreme traps. And I think that is very problematic. And if you are not going to be able to encompass the journey that you're going to go on mentally, then I don't know it's the best thing. I know you haven't been in the space in some time, and I don't think much has changed in this space as far as like qualifying mentally for the surgery. Most insurance companies are looking for 1 hour with one person you've never met before who is just trying to check mark a couple of benches. You're not suicidal. There's no domestic violence at home. We don't have any eating disorder situations going on. Food addiction is not included in that conversation because it's not recognized in the DSM. So we're not going to talk about that, but we're just going to look for the other pointers. So most people get through with the surgery, and then there's no mental guidance, unfortunately, afterwards. And that's where it all falls apart. And the GLP-1s, I think, have this even tenfold because the access to that medication today, you can get from just about anybody. I haven't done drugs in a long time, but I'd probably be quicker to get GLP-1s today than a bag of cocaine in Las Vegas. Like, I can do it in a second from somebody who shouldn't be selling it, but has the ability to do it. And then you think that comes with any nutrition explanation, any mindset change? Absolutely not. So I think they get left holding the bag even more so than the bariatric journey.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do totally agree with you. I feel like, at least for our center, yes, there was an insurance piece that had to, but there was for some, a 6 month pre-op, which I was like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Because then they're seeing the therapist and the dietitian monthly for their check mark. And then the post-op, that's the tricky part because you can't hold anybody's feet to the fire. You can't tell them you have to come or you can't have the surgery. Like, surgery's been
Yeah.
done. And then I think it's the post-op that's the most like, oh, if we could have caught you, you and I are going to talk about that regain piece. I feel like if we could have caught patients earlier and really set like realistic expectations of how this process should be going and not the social media piece of the weight just falling off.
Yeah.
Yes, there's honeymoon phases, but hang on, there's all these other pieces that I think the journey could have gone so much smoother. I actually have a question for you on that, and then I want to backtrack. But do you feel like if an expectation could have been, I'm probably going to lose a significant amount and then gain a certain amount back and then find my set point? Like, that's what I feel like I saw with patients, but instead of them being settled with, okay, I know this gain's realistic and then I'll settle back in, it was more of the panicky feeling of I'm regaining, it's happening, and now going back to those hardcore measures that you were talking about of now I need to count points, go liquid diet, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Statistically, they say like a 5 to 10, 15 pound weight gain is very normal, and that's to be expected. What I primarily see, 60% of our client base, I'm seeing a significant amount of regain going on. And that story is never different. Nobody has come to the rewrite and blown my socks off. Maybe the quote unquote life happening thing that happened is a little bit wild. Maybe I'll hear something that I've never heard before. But for the most part, somebody has completely gone back to using food emotionally to cope because a life event happened, combined with diet culture food, which is like just sugar-free everything, ultra-processed everything. Don't worry, there's protein added into it. And that magical combination, the scale just continues to seem to spiral up. I was told I would get to 175 pounds. And I was like, that's BS. Because I was almost 300 pounds at my highest. I said, there's no way. And I got to that number and I kept losing. I got to 150. And then I had my plastics, and that brought on a fun game of inflammation.
Mm.
And I sit now between 155 and 160. And I have never once panicked about that 10 pounds if we're looking at the 160. I never once panicked because I'm not doing anything to warrant concern. But I had to educate myself also on what would be warranting concern. And me waking up every morning and eating a breakfast that's 20 to 25 grams of chewable protein, eating every 3 to 4 hours with protein and fiber as my main focus. I don't have sugar in my diet, which is not an everybody choice, but a Shenelle choice, and not something we tell everybody to do at the rewrite. That's a personal choice to make that. But I don't have any markers that say this is to be concerned. I'm 42 now. I know that menopause is going to be coming knocking before I know it. And I have all the ducks in line to be ready for it, that I'm controlling every lever that I can control the correct way today. So I don't fear it. I haven't had any issues with it, but I knew that I could see that 5 to 15. I knew the inflammation from my plastics was going to play a role, and also going into menopause, but I eat in a particular way that leaves me no concern.
Yes. Oh, that's so, yes, wonderfully stated. And would it be safe to say, because of you recovering from alcohol, drugs, that you had a decent amount of therapy that already happened prior to thinking more of the food piece of therapy?
Yeah, I had Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what I had.
Okay.
And that was what changed my life. And I didn't go into AA right away. It took me a year into sobriety to go into AA. I was
Hmm.
sober and I was still just miserable. Couldn't figure it out. Someone encouraged me
Mhm.
to go to a meeting when I was 1 year sober to get one of those chips. I didn't know what I was getting myself involved in. I went because they were like, you can post it on your Instagram and everybody will know you've been sober for a year. And I was like, all right, let me find a meeting. I'll get there right away. Get that chip. And then that changed my life because I got a sponsor. And that work by somebody who'd been in the same position as me
Yeah.
was what changed. Because I had tried therapy, not to dog it, because it works for a lot of people. But I had somebody who was like, you don't want to do AA? Let's write your own 12 steps. I could barely keep a job. And I was trying to figure out how to parent sober. And now I'm like, what are the 12 steps? What do you mean, write them my own? Like, I haven't been flying, making good choices for decades, let alone try to write that out for myself. It was the program that changed my life. And also the program that showed me that if I didn't change my relationship with food, I knew where this was going to head. I saw in AA a lot of people get sober, beautiful stories of recovery, beautiful stories. And then, like, I saw a lot of it transition to food. And I would
Mhm.
watch people get sicker and sicker as their mind got clearer and clearer as far as they were concerned. And that transfer was just right there all the time. And my first sponsor in AA had surgery and regained her weight. And so she had heeded me a heavy warning when I told her I was going into surgery, was that this didn't fix my relationship with food. And it frightened me because she had an immense amount of sobriety, 17 years at the time. She had a horror story that she got out of. She had a nice house, nice car, nice husband. I was like, if she can't figure it out, how am I going to figure it out? But I didn't know who I was sober. I didn't know a sober Shenelle. I've been drinking since I was 15, 16. I grew up in the music industry with my parents, musicians. I just didn't know that person. I
Mhm.
had to create it and start acting like it. And then the
Mhm.
reality is, with my surgery, I didn't know who I was healthy. I knew the girl counting points, eating space food. I knew her very well. And I also knew the version who didn't care, who this isn't important right now. I've got a boyfriend. I don't care. Whatever benchmarks I had for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was the person that did care 24/7 and not in that weird, restricted, odd space where I wasn't even eating really good foods? This one,
Yeah.
who was it? How does she handle grocery shopping? How does she handle social life? How does she handle setting boundaries with people? How does she learn to prioritize herself, her mobility? I had to write it out. I can't just make up a thought on a Friday night for the woman I'm going to be on Monday. I had to actually have a plan of action, and I had to slow roll it. People don't jump in and get everything at once. And they do. They're like, when am I going to the gym? When am I going to get my macros? I'm like, dude, sit down and let's try breakfast for 1 week. Let's just start there. And then we'll jump to the next step because we try to do it all at once. But to come back
Yes.
to the question you asked about my recovery is, yeah, I think I have a one step up. And I think almost anyone does. It comes from recovery to bariatric surgery. It's because we do understand suffrage in a little bit of a different way. The food addict without a substance abuse past doesn't quite see it as well, because if they decide they're going to power through a bag of Oreos tonight, they're not going to get behind the wheel and kill somebody. They decide they're going to go to the fast food restaurant and order 2 meals and eat them in their car today, they're not going to lose their kids tomorrow with CPS. Like, the consequences are not as immediate. They're like watching paint dry on the wall, because what you end up losing is your experience of life and
Mhm.
enjoying it.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. Yes. You're so well stated. I just feel like I have chills the whole time you're talking because I know that you are resonating so strongly with every individual I've come across who's been on this weight loss journey, surgery or not. You're really naming it. I think this is a good time to also flip this grid for individuals who fix the food piece, but then can
Mhm.
accidentally get into the alcohol piece. Like, it can, if we
Yes.
don't fix the mental piece, what have you seen with that?
Yeah, so they talk about transfer addiction. And this is one of my favorite subjects for the surgical people to get into this conversation about transfer addiction. And we're talking about alcohol. And this
Mhm.
is where I think the muddy waters are, because if you're going to tell me that somebody became an alcoholic, they transferred to that. What did they transfer from? Oh, that thing we're not going to talk about because it's not in the DSM. Where did it come from? What was happening? They were using food, and now they can't use food in that way. And there's two reasons for a bariatric patient to become an alcoholic. And the statistics are not great. I mean, for a bypass patient, I think it's like 7% chance. And none of us are getting on a plane today that had a 7% chance of falling out of the sky. We're not going to do it. And there's two mechanisms. One is that transfer aspect of it, is that you found a new way to cope. But the second is just the way that you are now absorbing alcohol is lightning speed. It's like going from having a Red Bull to freebasing crack. Like it's just hits you way differently. If you are that person, whether it's genetic, whether it's a spiritual or a mind thing that gets you, you're in there and you will be drinking and the whole mess is there. They don't say no to not drinking after surgery. Like there's no hard rule on that. And I feel like it should be for a bypass or a SADie or Donald switch. Like I think it should be like a hard no. I don't think we're scared to say this to a liver transplant. We're not like, oh, you shouldn't. That's common sense. You got new lungs. Awesome. Probably don't smoke again. Maybe that would be something to consider. I think it should be a solid no because it's just too risky. And also when you are drinking, you're no longer burning fat. You're not going to sleep well. Your whole system's going to be off. If you're the woman who can have a glass of wine on her anniversary, like ignore everything I just said. But that wasn't me before my surgery. And I can't even imagine what I'd be like today if I was like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what's going to happen. My whole life would be gone in a flash. And it's scary and risky to bring it. The sleeve, the numbers are a little bit lower because the absorption is different with the way that surgery works. And I had this sleeve and I still, obviously for other purposes besides my surgery, uninterested in picking up another drink. But I do see it when we get somebody at the rewrite who says, I want to get into your program. I want some help. I want to get da-da-da-da-da. And we have a process. And if we find that they're regularly drinking, we cannot help you. Sometimes we think that if we fix the food, everything else in life is going to come together. I find that there's often an elephant in the room that's not being talked about. I've seen all sorts of things. Women who are in traumatic relationships or having a second life, if you know what I'm saying, or cannot keep a roof over their head. And then it's all of a sudden like, let's diet right now. That's a good thing. That's what I'm going to work on. You got to one piece at a time. But with the drinking, it's just problematic for most bariatric patients.
Yeah, and I think somebody needed to hear that today. Just this whole like it can be that black and white, that maybe this is not the season of life to be able to dabble. You're not going to get your results. And I'm glad you started to go here too. It's the whole mental shift of if I'm using food or was using food for stress reduction, for I'm sleepy and I'm trying to seek out energy, for anything emotional. When that's stripped away, it's like your pacifier's gotten taken away, your baby blankie's gone. So we seek out something else that gives us that immediate comfort. And of course, alcohol or shopping or
shopping. Yeah, I see more shopping in my space than I see the alcohol. That's the biggest thing. I see that more frequently. I don't know what studies have been done on it, and I don't know how you would marker it, and I don't know what is the protocol for like that's a shopping addiction. But the TikTok shops and the Temu. It's Temu. I've never used Temu, but I have seen it in action, and it reminds me of Uber Eats. And Uber Eats has the platform behind and the marketing behind Uber Eats is very similar to the same marketing they use in gambling and the point system in gambling. Like, I live in Vegas. I'm very familiar with the gambling world here. And, you get these cards and you get these player cards, you get so many points and you get this thing, then you get this code. Oh no, now you get this many points. They all like the dingity dings of the whole thing. And Temu does the dingity ding things just like excellent case study on it. It's so good. And I can see how you can get that same experience. I just need this one thing in my house and it'll make me feel better. One other thing. And it's just filling that same hole. And the thing you were describing earlier, where you take the thing away and you're like, oh my gosh, that's in Alcoholics Anonymous, we call it a dry drunk, someone who's restless, irritable, and discontent. Meaning that your coping mechanism is stripped. However, you're not doing anything to work on what's being exposed.
Which equals white knuckling through it. You white knuckled for a whole year without tools. That's really impressive. I will also tell you, it's really impressive that you live in Vegas. You're not in an environment that's away from anything that could be tempting to you. And yet this is where it just shows like your mental work that's been done. And for that not to be a scary source for you is so hope-filling and promising to those individuals going, wow, I could get there if I work this hard on the mental piece.
Yeah. And the mental piece is the most beautiful part to work on. I've learned more about myself in the last 5 years than the 37 years of my life prior. to getting sober. And I've had to work through a lot of stuff. I've had to stop speaking fluent victimese and blaming everybody else for my circumstances. And I got so much power back by saying, oh, I see where I play a role in this situation. I'll clean up my side of the street. I'm not going to clean up somebody else's, but I can clean up my side. And if I have the power, then awesome. But if I blame other people for my circumstances, then I have to wait for them to change. And chances are they're not going to.
Right. Oh, that's a really big deal. It's interesting. I think because you made such this drastic rewrite. I'm like seeing it all come together. I can see how this all happened. But this shift of identity, rewriting your new identity was an odd blessing in disguise because it was just you had to become. You didn't know yourself, and therefore, if you had interest in knowing, you really had to transform and become. Whereas everybody does. Everybody needs to transform to have sustainable, lasting change. But maybe if it's not as in their face, they can hear that, but not really understand what that means. How do you help your clients get to that? This is it. This is the big deal. Like,
Yeah, a
listen
lot
up.
of it is inventory. We're not a 12-step program, so we're not taking anyone through step 5, which is a full inventory, or step 4. We're not doing that. But we do have them start reviewing their day. And where is there a resentment? And they can't necessarily see the correlation to the food, but we help them get there because the resentment starts with one thing that later ends up piling onto the whole day. And now I can't take care of myself. And now, you know what? I'm going to go to the drive-thru. I'm going to order on Uber Eats, or I'm going to eat all of my kids' fruit snacks in the pantry, like whatever that long-winded line gets to. But we tend to be more emotionally dysregulated about just everything. With the food addicts, the underlying piece I have just found in the couple of years of doing this work is the inability to want to take responsibility. And it's like, we have to shake that up. And I want to hear who's responsible for it. And let's talk about where you play a role in here and what we can accept and what we're not going to accept and what we can walk away from and what we can actually change. And sometimes people are just in marriages they shouldn't be in. I think that's such a common play over here, unfortunately. Is the version of you 5 years from now going to be upset that you haven't left yet? You got to be real clear about that. When I got married to someone in Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor asked me, write down 5 things that you cannot stand that he does. 5 things that drive you crazy, nails on the chalkboard. And of course, I had a couple. Like, I'm very timely. He can wait till last minute, and I am not a last minute person. That was like one of them for me. And I had just like these very like mediocre things. And I wrote them down. I was really thinking she was going to provide me how to respond to those things. And she said, are you cool if those don't change?
Mm.
That's not the answer I wanted, girl. Like, I wanted to know how to make him more timely, like
Yeah.
me, but she was right. Can you accept those? And I was like, yeah, I can accept them. I will accept them. And I cannot blame him ever for any of these things that I've come to accept. And that sort of approach to all the other aspects of our life. We have the boss drives us nuts, we don't like, then are we willing to look for another job, or do we accept the circumstances as being presented to us? But a lot of it just comes down to these little resentments, and they are on the heels of fears. We will move a mountain to avoid misery that later comes with more misery most of the time. I had a client yesterday who was distraught. She got into her pantry. She was just eating everything, and she couldn't tell you exactly what the emotion was behind it. But she's a caretaker for her elderly parent. And at night, around the same time this is happening. And what I'm finding is this is when after the parents gone to bed. And now she's by herself. This is her alone time. This is her alone time. And she's taking that self-care time and putting it there. And we had to come up with something else to do during our self-care time. It's not going to be the pantry anymore. And in that conversation, I encouraged her to find the emotion that she's feeling, because we try to deny it. So maybe the emotion is sadness. Maybe it's because your parent is slowly not becoming the person you remember them to be. That's normal and should be felt and should have tears and should require a phone call to a friend and to a loved one. That's normal. Allow it to exist. Do not stuff it down. It's a beautiful thing to be a human and to have those emotions and to experience them. And if you let it sit, it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't.
Right.
But then if you decide, you know what, I'm going to go to the pantry and rate everything, now we have that feeling already still there. And now we have shame on top of it, guilt on top of it, regret on top of it. And we've made something far more difficult than just allowing it to exist in the first place.
Right. That feelings never killed anybody. That
Correct.
really is, I know it's a cliche statement,
Yeah.
but you just described it perfectly. And honestly, to the person listening going, I can hear that. I haven't found the thing that replaces it because we do, in fact, have to find the thing that actually gives equal or even better reprieve. Because I see a lot of women be like, I'm not going to hit the couch and eat. I'm going to do laundry instead. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You can't replace fun
Right,
with
with
work.
chores.
Yeah.
No, you, you can't. And I have to remind myself that I'm living the dream for the girl who signed up for the surgery. I'm living her dream. And if I had been caught coming up 2 flights of stairs at 298 pounds and somebody said to me, Shenelle, listen, I'll take this away right now, snap of the finger, but here's the rules. I'm going to need you to track your food. And I'm going to ask you never to eat fast food again. I'm going to ask you to remove sugar. And I'll take you right there right now. Are you ready to go? And of course, I said, yes, let's get going. I would have been like, let's do it. And I've got to remember that. I
Mm.
have to honor where I came from. Like, I'm living homegirl's dream life right now. Everything I could have possibly thought after surgery came true times a bazillion. And I got to just appreciate it. I tell my clients sometimes when they're like, oh, life this, life that, go to the grocery store, go to the dog food section, take whatever weight you've lost, pick that up and walk down the aisle with it real quick. Okay. So we have the beauty of doing that and remembering. And I'm like, I don't know how I did it. So I had a 20-pound weight vest on at this conference last year at this one particular stand, and they put it on and they were just standing there talking to them for 5 minutes. I was 20 pounds and my knees were starting to hurt
Mm.
and my
Mhm.
back hurt. I was 20 pounds. I've lost 120 pounds. I was like a nothing. And I
Mm.
need those memories. I don't want to go back, but how do I feel it today? It took some time to clear the food out and be confident in those choices. And I had to focus on that. And I had to set boundaries. I had to get new friends, to be honest with you. Like I found a lot of my friends were foodies, and that when you took the food out, I didn't really have a lot to talk about. And I wasn't getting a lot out of that friendship. So I had new friends, new hobbies. I went and tried stuff. I got like a class pass membership. I got into like pole fitness. I would have never ever thought. And I'm awkward and weird and no dance background. And I go and I'm always in awe by everybody else I'm watching do it. I'm like, man, I could do this. If they can do it, I can do it. I just go out and experience life today, like doing the things I couldn't do. Like I go on roller coaster rides. I don't dread travel as much as I used to because now I can just get into a seat and I can cross my legs. I don't have to ask for a seatbelt extender.
Mhm.
So I just living my life. There's more at stake, but I also just write a gratitude list every day to just sort of set myself straight. And it sounds to me sometimes when I hear myself say this, I'm like, this is very corny. Like, I don't know how you ended up being that person. But and for a long time, I couldn't even write things I was grateful for. I was just writing things I was glad weren't my problem anymore. And
Mhm.
that alone's like revolutionary for me. Like, whoa, dude, you do not have to worry about finding an outfit to go to your friend's wedding. Like you don't have to stress about going to just one store in the whole city of Las Vegas to find something that's going to work for you. Just simple things like that. I had to just remind myself how lucky I am and get fun and creative, but not try to do it all overnight. I couldn't just, all those things I just exampled weren't like I woke up one morning and was like, wham, here it all
Right.
is. No, it's
That's what keeps
one
running through my head. It's this expectation sometimes because of, again, like false promises that have been thrown out into the world.
Mhm.
And the people who are really like a you, successful, sustainable at it, you are working the program. You are taking thoughts and capturing them if they're not the thought that you want and reframing it. You're the, I'm going to find something I'm thankful for every day. And I think, like you said, it can sound cliche, it can sound like this is so cheesy. And until we start doing it, we're not
Yeah.
transforming. We're putting band-aids on things. And you've found this path of new identity. I keep saying that, but please, listeners, hear that. It has to be a new identity that comes out of this for true sustainable change.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not the same person. My sarcasm, my wit, those are things I've had my whole life. And I'm sure some of them were personas I created to protect myself from not being liked because of what I perceived people thought about my weight. I think there's that funny gift that some of us have who've been overweight and then lose it, is that as hard as it's here, we've had to get through on our personalities a little bit more than I think some other people may have gotten through in their lives. And so we come out, I think, as these really funny, awesome people who get it. We've been on both sides of the road, man. And I think the relatability is there. I think that's why the rewrite is so successful, is that we've all had the surgery, so we can relate. The same experience I had in AA is having someone who had the surgery there tell me they got through it. If I follow some instructions, I'm gonna get through it just as well. But I can't do it all overnight. It'll be one little thing at a time. And self-reflection on who I am and where my defects are is so important, because I know where I screw up and I can't change everything about myself. Like, I'm not much of a morning person. I get up, but I don't want to eat breakfast. And breakfast is something I'm so adamant about with the rewrite, because it's changed my life by doing it. Like, there's a few common denominators amongst everyone I work with, and we don't like breakfast. We don't like it. We're going to skip. We're going to wait until we're hungry by 11 o'clock, and then we just eat a bunch of trash. So we really push breakfast, but I don't like breakfast. And I know this about myself. And I also know that I don't like wake up wanting to make it. And I know it's a pipe dream if I tell myself, tomorrow you're going to wake up and go downstairs and we're going to get some egg whites out. We're going to make a whole scramble. We're going to cut up them. At the 10 p.m. Shenelle's really selling it to herself, right? If I wake up, it's not going to happen. I know this, but I have to have breakfast. So I just have to find a better solution, which is I pre-make it for 4 days at a time. And that's what I always do. I get up and I go downstairs and I eat it. And I'm just used to it. And I find that when things are prepared for me, I do it. I get stuck in my own ability to do the work. And I can't fix that all the time and expect me to fix it all the time. So I find where the holes in the system are and how can I makeshift Band-Aid this for right now. So if I'm never going to be the girl making breakfast at 6 a.m, then I'm going to be the girl who prepared it when she's feeling good about life during the daytime and have it ready for the next few days.
Yeah, you're just giving such a beautiful example of it's a system now that you have in place. And now you have this ability to bounce back and have your system catch you versus banking on your emotional state to be like, I'm going to be in
Exactly.
that mood to do that. Well, I'm not.
I'm
I'm
not.
not in that mood. So now what? I think we'd be remiss to not hone in on this other piece that's happening here. Because of what you have turned into your career, because you were a shower upper to meetings with the AA piece and whatnot, like you have this full understanding that accountability and the show up factor on this end of it continues to matter every day. And I love that you've just built it into your life. So what would you tell individuals out of encouragement if they're like, well, I'm never going to be a coach. I'm never going to be the aerobics
Yeah.
instructor. I'm never going to be a dietitian. How do I keep that in my business world when my world, my career doesn't center around this type of talk? Because this is motivating.
Yeah.
If you talk about this every day, of course we stay motivated because
Right.
it's
Right.
encouraging. There's hope.
Mm-hmm.
But real life can strip that away, I think, from
It can.
individuals.
Yes. That's why in our program, it's a daily coaching program. There's touch points every single day, because I cannot wait for a 20, 30-minute Zoom with somebody to capture a whole week. And we make ourselves available 24 hours a day, which I think is a key component to how it works at the rewrite. A lot of my clients, probably I would be safe to say 50% of them work in healthcare. And so they have these very demanding jobs. And they lose themselves in these demanding jobs. They lose the ability to take care of themselves, to take their breaks and to eat. And they're rushed. And then the things are in the break room because it's nurses week and everyone's eating. It's just like one thing after another there. You have to write it out. Like we got to look at the structure. Like, what is the plan and where's the parts that are negotiable that we can control here? And sometimes we have to ask for the time that I think is deserved to be able to sit down and eat a meal. I have a couple of girls who have worked for Amazon, for example, and it can be a challenge on that floor. There's very specific rules on what they can bring onto the floor to eat in the warehouse and access to refrigerators and stuff like that. It's like you've got to advocate a little bit for yourself, because today's system is just like hustle and grind, which I don't believe in, but that's unfortunately the world that we live in. Hustle, grind, eat later. We'll worry about it later. Order a coffee and get back to work.
Keep moving.
Yeah. But you have to have those conversations with the people, because we also live in a space today where I don't think people want to lose employees either, especially in healthcare. And a nurse client to me said the other day, it is Nurses Week right now, I believe, or it was last week or something like that. And then they were celebrating with an ice cream social, and she was kind of mortified. She was like, most of the girls I work with are in the same predicament that I'm at. We're not healthy. We're the sick taking care of the sick right now. We're sending people home with advice that we're supposed to be taking, and we ain't taking
Mm.
it either. And that's, I think, just an overall Western issue with how medicine is treated today, that a lot of those people in those positions are just not taking care of themselves, but they have to be vocal because things don't change if you just continue to be the status quo. And even the things I talk about at the rewrite aren't popular. And there was a reason nobody was talking about them before I was talking about them, because food addiction is not sexy, but somebody has to start the conversation. And if you're that somebody in your office, you have no idea who else you might be standing up for who would never think to even talk about these things. You have to have that rock bottom definition, though, to want to change. Like, what is that for somebody? My rock bottom with alcoholism was nothing spectacular. I was a horrible drunk. I'd done some horrible things. But the day I decided to quit was nothing different than any other day before. I just was finally tired. I was tired of me. And that was the biggest problem. And that was the changing for me, is I'm going to grind and do it differently going forward here. I'm going to stand up for myself in the correct way. And it's not going to be easy, nor was the place I came from easy. Which heart is it that I want today?
Right. And what a beautiful question that continues. If we could all ask ourselves that daily, which heart am I choosing today? Because they're both hard, to your point. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that listeners are going, I need more of you in our ears. Where is your best place to send people? Maybe they're not quite ready to full go
Yeah,
on a program, but where do you send?
absolutely. Two places. One, we have a free Facebook group. It's called the Bariatric Rewrite Private Group. You don't have to be surgery. You don't have to be on a GLP-1 to be there. You can come join there. It's on Facebook. We have an app that's launched called Rewrite Lifestyle, and you can find that in the App Store. It is a food tracking app that incorporates all the mindset stuff that we discussed today as well, helps you make more whole food choices. It coaches you in real time on your suggestions. It does all sorts of cool stuff. You can download it and toy with it and play with that as well. And then I'm across all the social medias. Most people can just find me by searching purple haired bariatric coach, because spelling my name can be difficult.
That's amazing. Oh, I love your resources and thank you for having them all out there. The Facebook group alone could be like such an easy step for listeners to jump
Yeah.
over to just
Hmm.
be the fly on the wall. Just watch some
Exactly.
conversations go down and see what resonates. Yeah. I think so many people have this feeling that group support feels one way, that there's always this one person who's just going to monopolize the conversation and everyone else is going to sit and be. And I don't think they look like that in most settings, especially like well-regulated settings. I find with my community, our support groups are my favorite thing we do because they help each other. And I'm like, I wouldn't have
Hmm.
said that today. That was amazing advice. Ah, this is game changing to have you ladies speak to each other versus
Yeah,
it always just being a Shenelle or I like talking at you.
exactly.
Thank you for having that. Yes. And if you could wrap your arms around our listeners, if you heard nothing else I said today, take this away. What would that look like?
I would say that you've done harder things than this. You really
Mm.
have. If some of the most horrific things in your life could be taken back just by simply making some changes into your life, would you make that swap? That reminder of myself at the top of 2 flights of stairs. I've done way harder things in my life than say no to fast food. Way
Mm.
harder. And I've gotten through that without a problem.
Mm. That I have not had that answer even close yet, and that was amazing. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, joining us today, and you always have an invite back.
Thank you so much.